Hey folks, Professor Finn here, and we're going to continue with our study of restorative art. Um, Take a moment to like, share, subscribe, share this video with a friend, let them know it's out there, post this on your social media so people are aware of this study aid. Quick reminder, these are old presentations. They are not my usual stuff that I did later on, so please keep that in mind as we are looking through this. Let's go ahead and get the screen shared. Today we're going to be talking about facial muscles, and we're going to get the pen on so that I can scribble on the screen because small things amuse me. Let's talk about muscles of the cranium, face, and neck. So first up, we have the occipital frontalis muscle, also known as the epicranius. It is the large singular muscle which covers the top and sides of the cranium. Its origin is the superior nuchal line of the occipital bone. Its insertion is the lower portion of the forehead. Its function draws the scalp backward, raising the eyebrows, and it creates the transverse frontal sulci, which are the wrinkles of the forehead. We will get to those here shortly. So origin, superior nuchal line of the occipital bone, it starts there. Its insertion is the lower part of the forehead, so it starts in the back, attaches in the front, and it pulls things back, which raises your eyebrows. So again, feel free to touch things, figure out where they are, and if you touch things, you can't remember what they do, you'll be able to figure it because once you know where the muscle is, you can kind of figure out how it affects. Remember, you're going to have 4 answers in front of you. Chances are pretty good. Only one of those is going to fit where it is that you're pointing at, if you're pointing at the right place, of course. Muscles near the eye. We have the orbicularis oculi, which is the sphincter muscle which encircles the eye. Its function, it closes the eyelids, lets you squint, and it creates optic facial sulci, also known as crow's feet. You have the corrugator muscle, also known as the frowning muscle. It is a small, narrow, pyramid-shaped muscle located at the medial end of each eyebrow. Its origin is the root of the nose. Its insertion is the deep tissues along the supraorbital margin, and its function is to draw the medial eyebrows downward and medial, and creates vertical interciliary sulci. Okay, a lot of words here. Things start getting scary. Corrugator, root of the nose. Well, there's the root of the nose. That's not hard. It originates there. It inserts into the deep tissues along the supraorbital margin. So it attaches to your skull about midway through your eyebrow, right? And what does it do? If it originates here and it ends here, it's going to pull towards origination. It is going to drive your eyebrows down towards the middle. That's it. That's it. And vertical interciliary sulci. Vertical means up and down. Interciliary means between hairs. In this case, we're talking about the eyebrows. Sulci are grooves. So as this muscle does its thing, your eyebrows, your skin where the eyebrows are, starts to fold, and it forms these little grooves. We have the levator palpebrae superioris, which is the straining muscle of the upper eyelid. Its origin is the deep tissue of the eye socket. Its insertion is the upper tissue of the eyelid, and its function is to raise the upper eyelid. Severing this muscle may be necessary to correct eyelid separation. You may see an embalmer take a scalpel, go inside the eye, and run it right against the inferior margin of your supraorbital margin. And what they're doing is severing that muscle. Then they'll close the eyelid, they'll take a finger or an aneurysm hook or an aneurysm needle, and then they will try to pocket that eyelid and recreate that little indentation that shows that the eye is there. Usually we put an eye cap in there. It's a little bit easier because it'll attach to the eye cap, and usually we put some type of sticky mastic, or some people use wax, some people use super glue. But the goal is, if you can't get the eye closed, you cut the muscle, you push it shut, and then you reshape the eye. That's the moral of the story. Muscles of the nose. We have the procerus, also known as the concentrating muscle, a long, thin slip of muscle over the bridge of the nose. One of the ways you can remember this is projection, procerus, nose projects. Its origin is the lower portion of the nasal bones. Its insertion is the tissues of the lower forehead. And what does it do? It draws the medial portion of the eyebrow downward. Well, if it starts here and goes up and it pulls down, it will pull skin, including the most medial portion of the eyebrow, down towards the nose. And what does this create? Transverse interciliary sulci. Okay, so now we had vertical interciliary sulci, and now we have transverse interciliary sulci. So these are the little age grooves that form from that muscle doing its thing right above the root of the nose. Muscles near the mouth. You have the levator labii superioris aliquae nasi, which is the common elevator. It raises the upper lip and dilates the nostrils. You have the levator labii superioris. Okay, so hold on a second. We got levator labii superioris aliquae nasi, messes with your nose, okay? Raises the upper lip, plays with your nose. And then you just have the levator labii superioris, which just plays with your lip, elevates and extends your upper lip. Not that hard. Don't let the big science words scare you. Orbicularis oris. Well, you just had one orbicularis. That was the oculi. It puckers your eye. Well, now you have the oris. You have the one over your mouth. And what does it do? It closes your mouth. This is also known as the puckering muscle. It is the sphincter which encircles the mouth, and its function is to close your mouth. And don't we wish more people would exercise that muscle? You have the levator anguli oris, which is the muscle located in the area of the canine teeth. So levator means lift, anguli, angle, oris, mouth. So something will raise the angle of the mouth. Located in the area of the canine teeth, right here, its origin is the canine fossa. Not hard to keep that in line. Its insertion is the angle of the mouth, and its function is to elevate the corner of the mouth. And it emphasizes the presence of the nasolabial fold and the angulus oris eminence. We will get there, but it emphasizes these little things over here that make your cheeks and lips look like they do. You have the quadratus labii superioris, four-part muscle that has to do with your lips, and it's the top one. A muscle extending from the inferior eye socket to the orbicularis oris. If right about now you are thanking your professors for making you memorize all those Latin medical terms, this is why. Because, here we are almost 20 years later, and you can just understand what the muscles are by their names without thinking too hard about it. This muscle elevates the upper lip. It has three bellies. The levator labii superioris aliquae nasi, the common elevator, so that is part of the quadratus labii superioris. You have the levator labii superioris, the zygomaticus minor, which emphasizes the nasolabial fold. You see all of these things right there. You have the zygomaticus major, which is the laughing or the smiling muscle. The origin is the posterior portion of the zygomatic muscle, which inserts within the corner of the mouth. What does it do? It retracts and elevates the angle of the mouth. If it's starting here and it attaches here and it pulls that way, that's going to mess with the angles of the mouth. It emphasizes the presence of the nasolabial fold. Once you know that where that is, it'll make all the sense in the world. You have the zygomaticus minor, which draws the upper lip superiorly and laterally. There's nothing really there to help you with. You just have to remember that the zygomaticus major goes down here and pulls this way, and the zygomaticus minor goes over the top and kind of pulls right near the nose. You have the muscles of mastication, the muscles of chewing. You have the temporalis muscle. This is one people usually forget. The broad fan-shaped muscle over the squama of the temporal bone. Shouldn't have to think too hard where it is because it has the same name as the bone. Its origin is the entire temporal depression. This thing attaches to the entire portion of the temporalis, or the temporal bone, basically. Its insertion is the coronoid process. You can see that the coronoid process is right here. It attaches right down there. So there's your condyle, right? That's the coronoid process. The function is to retrieve the lower jaw, bringing the teeth together. You have the masseter, which is the major muscle of mastication. This is the one that does all the chewing work. Its origin is the anterior 2/3 of the zygomatic arch and lower border of the cheekbone. Its insertion is the angle of the jaw and upper half of the ramus, and its function is to raise the lower jaw. It's responsible for the surface plane of the cheek. That is extremely important. You can see the masseter muscle right here. It is the major chewing muscle. Muscles of the cheek. You have the buccinator. I've heard it also said buccinator. I call it the buccinator. It is known as the trumpeter's muscle, the principal muscle of the cheek, lateral wall of the mouth. Its function is to compress the cheek. Now, here's the thing. People confuse the buccinator with the masseter. It is not that muscle. This is wrong. Do not think that this is the right muscle. It is this guy underneath here. This does not help in chewing. It compresses the cheek. You have the risorius muscle, which is the false smile muscle. The small, narrow, superficial muscle of the cheek, which originates in the tissues over the masseter muscle. It inserts at the angle or corner of the mouth, and it retracts the angles of the mouth. You have muscles inferior to the mouth. First up, you have the depressor anguli oris muscle, which is also known as the triangularis. You can see it looks like a triangle. This muscle locates inferior to the lateral portion of the mouth. Its origin is the oblique line of the mandible. Its insertion is the angle of the mouth. Its function is to depress the angles of the mouth, and it emphasizes the presence of the angulus oris eminence, which is the little raised portion here on the side of the lips. So you had a levator anguli oris. It raises something. You have a depressor. This one pulls it down, but it's in the same general area. You have the mentalis muscle, the muscle situated over the prominence of the chin. Its origin is the incisive fossa. Its insertion is the tissues of the chin, and it raises the lower lip, and it wrinkles the chin. This is what you want to hook under if you are doing a mentalis suture to close the mouth. You have the depressor labii inferioris, which is known as also a quadratus muscle. The muscle located inferior to the medial portion of the mouth. Its origin is the oblique line of the mandible. Its insertion is the tissues associated with the labiomental sulcus, and its function is to pull the lower lip down and to the side. It affects the line of mouth closure and the presence of the angulus oris sulcus. Muscles of the neck. You have the platysma, which is the broad, flat, superficial muscle of the anterior neck. Its origin is the tissue over the collarbone. Its insertion is the tissues of the cheek and mouth. Well, if it originates here and ends up there, it's going to pull downward. So what does it do? Its function is to lower the angle of the mouth, depress the mandible and anguli oris, as in pouting. You have the sternocleidomastoid muscle, the SCM. Its function is to draw the head from side to side and also rotates the head. The SCM marks the widest measurement of the widest part of the neck. Again, the SCM marks the measurement of the widest part of the neck. The digastricus, or the digastric, is it lies right below the body of the mandible. It's an elongated form, may be responsible for one form of the cords of the neck. It lengthens through age, and it draws the hyoid bone superiorly. So you can see this isn't too visible unless you are looking underneath. It's kind of a pain in the behind to see. Not a lot of muscles, folks. This is a relatively light one, but there's a lot of information with all the origins, insertions, and functions. So be glad those are the only ones we have to know. Spend some time going over this. Every time you sit down in restorative art, make sure you touch on the bones, you touch on the muscles. Doesn't matter what you're studying in the subject. The first 5 to 10 minutes, you should reinforce the muscles, reinforce the bones, reinforce the facial markings, and then go into whatever it is you are going to study. So again, folks, take a second to like, share, subscribe, share this with a friend. We will see you next video.